Hey everybody. You know, I didn't get a chance to talk about this. I could have talked about it this morning, but well, only wanted to do one video at home, which was the Mega Mystery Power Box unboxing. And I might do another one because I think I have an idea. If it's still there by the end of the workday, I'm going to grab the other one, buy it, and then see what's in it, because apparently the contents, after watching Ben's Toy Ben video from last year, are completely different. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, though, I wanted to come on here and give my thoughts on two upcoming game consoles that are retro in theme. The first one, I can't think of its name. I think it's Polygon or Polywall or something. I can't think of its name, but it's pronounced something similar. But basically, this console will allow you to play a lot of games from different systems. From the NES, the SNES, the Sega, I think the Sega Genesis, I think the Sega Master Drive or Master System, I think the Saturn maybe, I'm not really sure, the PS1, and possibly the PS2, but mostly the PS1 it looks like, the TurboGrafx 16, the TurboGrafx CD player, as well as the TurboGrafx CD players, or CD games I should say. Atari I think was mentioned in there, as well as maybe Coleco and all of them. I'm not really sure yet, but basically this system that was announced looks promising in a sense. They did have an advertisement for it, but there's one thing that I think kind of hurts it, and that is basically, and again, there's one thing that hurts it, and that is basically the fact that you gotta buy separate adapters. Hear me out. What I mean by adapters, I mean adapter ports. You see, the thing's gonna come in a box, and it looks like that's just it. And it might come with one port. I'm not saying it will, and I'm not saying it won't. More likely it'll come with the NES one. But you gotta buy the other ports. And what they do is they detach from whatever the system is, from whatever this thing is. It's smaller than what it looks. But they supposedly detach these ports, attach from the main console itself, basically the main box itself, so you could play all the systems. So in other words, to play this system, you got to keep attaching different, and you want to play different games, you got to buy, it looks like there's going to be about 5 or 6 available at launch, but you got to buy these different ports, adapter ports, to play your different games. I think the CD one is going to be for all CDs, CD-based games from Saturn to, well, I would say Sega CD, Saturn, TurboGrafx CD, PS1, and maybe Neo-Geo CD. I'm not really sure, but I'm assuming the CD adapter or the CD port adapter will be for all the CDs. I'm assuming. But you're going to have different cartridge-based ones. You're going to have one for the Super Nintendo. You're going to have one for the NES. You're going to have one for, I believe, Atari. So along with the CD one, you got Super Nintendo, Sega, Atari, Nintendo. So like I said, CD, Atari, Sega, Nintendo, Super Nintendo. And then of course, I think the Sega Master System as well. I'm not really sure. But basically, again, this thing looks and sounds promising. But like I said, I think the one thing that's going to hold it back is the fact that instead of just selling all the parts together, which they may do, they may have a bundle pack for that ready to go, where you buy everything at once in one pack. To basically sell a system and then say, oh, by the way, the only way you could play all these other backwards games, all these other retro titles from these other systems, with this all-in-one deal, is you got to buy these separate ports. Now, again, Now again, like I said, the idea sounds promising to finally have a system where you could play all your different games from all different past consoles over the past 20, 30 years, or should I say 20 to 40 years. But it's another to basically say, yeah, here's the main base and here's one console adapter free, or that comes along with it. But then you got to buy the other ones. That doesn't make sense. And if you're going to charge for who knows how much those ports are going to be, it's, like I said, the better, if not more reasonable option is to put it all together. Because at least consumers will be willing to pay that amount to play those games and not have to worry about going out and paying another $40, $50, $60 for an adapter port to play another console, or play another console port or console adapter or whatever to play these other games. You know, people won't have to worry about going out and buying the CD port so they can play all the CD-based games from all the different CD-based consoles. They won't have to worry about going out and buying a console port, a cartridge port for Sega Genesis. If they sell it all together in one bundle, which I think they should do, especially with the holidays coming around, and if they really want to get on the consumer's good side and the retro gamer's good side and hardcore gamer good side, then that's what you do. You sell everything in one bundle pack, and hopefully they're thinking about that as well as coming out and planning to sell this thing and then sell the other ones, sell the adapter ports for the different consoles that you'll be able to play, hey, if you catch my drift, on the system individually. So right now I will say, and I know I'm repeating myself here, I will say that like I said, the idea for this system, this console sounds good. I think the only thing that's going to hold it back from being a positive seller is the fact that you're basically not selling everything at once. And hopefully that's what they're going to do, along with the individual port adapters or console port adapters that they're going to sell. Because if they sell the bundle packs, they'll be surprised how fast those go, especially if it's at a reasonable, affordable price. So that's just my thoughts on that retro console. The other retro console I want to talk about, it just got announced, is the PlayStation Classic. Now, I used to have a PS1, the original PS1. I still have my PS2, but my original PS1 I used to have, but for some reason it wasn't working right. I mean, it would come on and it would work a little bit, but then it just sat in its area. Even when I lived on Thoroughbred here in Patterson, it just sat in the corner of my TV stand that my cousin gave me. So basically, it just sat there for a while, and the system I used mostly to play my PS1 games was my PlayStation 2. So I ended up giving that away, the PS1, but I did not give away my PS2 because I still want to get the opportunity to hook it up. I will still be playing games on that. The one thing that I noticed, because Mike Mattel and Ryan of Cinemassacre, they were discussing this, and one thing that they mentioned was you won't have the analog controllers that they brought in later on. That's fine, because I remember when I got my PS1, I got it with the regular controllers, and I was used to that. But this PS1 Classic, it basically is going to be HDMI input. It's going to have an HDMI input, but you can play your games in 1080p, maybe 4K. As well as it's going to have a plug. Now they said the difference about the plug is you won't be able. It's not a plug that's going to allow you to take it on the go or something like that. I don't know what it was. Basically, it's not going to. Basically, the plug is not going to be USB adapted, where you connect an AC adapter to the USB and there you go. Anyway, though, from what I understand, there's going to be 15 to 20 games on there. 15, 20 games. They've already announced a few. that are going to be on there, and these are pretty good titles. From Final Fantasy being one of them. I think Final Fantasy 7 that is. So they got a good selection of titles that they're bringing in right now that they've announced. But we don't know what the other 15 or 10 are going to be. And it sounds like it's being positioned for a holiday release. Now, the way it's designed is designed to look similar to the original PS1, the original PlayStation. So that's good. And again, it all depends on. And again, there are 5 games announced, with 15 to 10 more prepared for announcement in the future. So it looks like I look at it this way. This PS1 is going to be a good seller. I know one thing that Mike and Ryan disagreed upon was the price tag of, $99, basically $100. Well, I agree that's a little pricey, but here's the deal. This is at a time. When basically we were jumping from the 32-bit era into that 64, 72-bit era, and systems like the PlayStation were complementing that change. They were basically ahead of its time. So they were complementing that change. So again, I can agree that the price might be a little steep when it comes out, but I look at it from the fact that, hey, this isn't the SNES Classic, and this isn't the NES Classic. This is the PlayStation. And the only reason those are cheaper in price is because the games at that time, and still are, affordable to create, and in this case, emulate and transfer onto systems like that. Thus, they could support and afford to sell these systems at a cheaper price. PlayStation is taking games that were CD based only and putting them all into this PlayStation Classic. And like I said, these games were a lot more, and if you look at CD based games today as well, are still very expensive to make. So it's understandable that charging $99, $100 basically for the system, for this classic system, is understandable, because they're going to want to make that money back, because it's going to cost them a lot of money to basically put these games on this classic system. So again, I can agree with Mike and Ryan on that, but I also look at the fact that they want to make that money back, and it's going to cost them money to even apply or even put these games onto this system, as they get ready to release it, maybe in time for the holiday season. We're not really sure yet. So overall, though, I do like the concept of PS1 Classic or PlayStation Classic. It'll give the newer generation that's wondering, okay, why was there a PS2? Why was there a PS2? Why was there a PS? Was it? It gives this newer generation that's more into the PS3s and PS4s and all that a better idea of where it all started. So I like that. I really do like the idea. Again, I agree. The retail price at release is a little steep. But again, you got to make the money back somehow. And again, it's not cheap to take basically CD-based games and put them onto something like a classic system, a retro system like the PlayStation. It's not cheap, especially if it's not going to be emulated. Well, it's going to be emulated, but you get the idea. So again, I like the idea, and if I have the opportunity to get one, I will. I'm not going to deny that. Now, one more thing I do want to talk about, just a bit of a bonus. The Arcade 1-Up systems. These are basically everybody from Chris Boers, formerly known as Irate Gamer, to Ree's channel, to anybody that's talked about this. This idea from Arcade 1-Up is pretty good. it's a pretty good idea, because basically what you're getting here is essentially an arcade system as you remember it. The only thing that's different, or could be a negative for a lot of people, is when you get the system, you got to put it together yourself. Yeah, it basically comes, if you watch Riz channel, they did an unboxing of it, basically a video where they unboxed it and put it together, kind of time-lapse, put it together. But basically, yeah, you got to assemble this thing yourself. Now, it doesn't look like it's that hard, so you just got to be careful what you do. But in the end, you should be able to play a lot of your games. Play the games that are on there. And they got a good selection, from what I've seen, from Gallagher to Centipede to a cabinet with Street Fighter. So they got some good selections, and we do, ironically, right now have 3. We have 1 that's different and 2 that are the same. And if they don't sell, I might try to get one myself. I know that we have a guest room in my house that doesn't get used that much, and I know families would like to play something like that, especially the kids. The other thing about this system is, about these Arcade 1 cabinets, is they come with an additional stand. I can't think of the name right now, but basically you buy the stand individually, and to give yourself the authentic feel of an actual arcade, like you would play, let's say, when you'd go camping and there'd be an arcade area near the beach, or where you'd go to the lake or something like that, or at a place like Santa Cruz Boardwalk. Basically, this little stand will give you that authentic feel of being in that kind of environment. Because basically, once you set it up, what you need to do actually is just sit down and play if you want to, and sitting down is probably the most likely thing you're going to do. But overall, though, like I said, I do like the idea of the arcade 1-up. I like the selection they got going on so far, especially with the Street Fighter one, which we do not have. I hope we get it soon. But the other ones are pretty good, and I like the idea. I like the concept. And these being like the first 4 or 5 coming out, hopefully they got more planned in the future, and hopefully they can get more licensing for other titles that were arcade classics, were beloved arcade classics when they originally were in the arcade. So I like the 1-up idea, and maybe someday, by the grace of God, I might get one. So that's all I'm going to say, though, guys, on these 3 video game systems, or retro systems, or whatever you want to call them. Let me know what you all think down below. I got to get into work now, and I will talk to you all later. God bless. Take care.